Hello and welcome to a Squidzilla Ink tutorial video. In this video we will be showing you the basics of casting your own bases and basing material. An integral part of this process is bluestuff, also known as thermoplastic. We'll be using it to make molds of the bases that we create so that we can make as many copies as we need using resin or greenstuff. So, to start with, you'll need acrylic resin, a measuring spoon, in this case we're using 1/4 of a teaspoon, and something to mix it in and pour it out of, like this silicone cup. You'll also need something to pour it into. In this case, we've got these brick molds. We'll be using these cobblestone shaped trapezoid things at the bottom here. Make sure you read the instructions on the packet first, but in this case it's a 3:1 ratio of powder to water. Get some level spoons of the powder, put it in, add the water, leave it for a little bit to get ready, and give it a good mix. Leaving it to rest for a moment while we tidy away, before giving in another mix and pouring it into the mold. Once the liquid's in the mold, use a stick or a flat surface to push the liquid around and make sure it gets in all of the spaces you need. Give it all a tap to make sure there's no trapped air bubbles, and then put it aside to set. Once it's set, you should be able to use something sharp, like a knife or a sculpting tool, to free them of their excess. Just slice it along, give it a scrape, knock all of the excess off. Don't need to worry about being too neat with this, because when you're creating the bases, you don't want all the bricks to look uniform anyway. If you look here, you can see that the resin has picked up the serial number off the silicone mold, so you don't have to worry about it not being able to pick up any details or muddying the details you've got on there already. It is quite good at finding them. With all the bricks free of their excess, it's a simple, straightforward procedure of popping the bricks out. Just like using an ice cube tray, just nowhere near as difficult. Make sure you give the silicone mold a clean afterwards. You don't want to be using it next time and find old bits of resin in there. Here we have a handful of bricks, ready to create a base. If you take some clippers and start chopping away at the brick, you'll be able to create a more realistic masonry feel. You don't have to do this, but having uniform bricks is a little bit weird when it's supposed to be a well-worn walkway or something like that. We're just building some bases here for you to see what they look like, but you don't have to use resin bricks to create them. You can use anything. Bits from your bits box, things you've made with green stuff, things you found in the garden. Whatever you do, the next step is the same. It's uniform throughout. Bluestuff, thermoplastic. All you've got to do with this is throw it in some boiled water, or boiling water. Afterwards, it should become soft and malleable in your hands, able to just squash it and move it around. You don't have to be too quick with it, but don't be too slow either, because it'll set. Push your base that you've created into the bluestuff, and then leave it to cool. Once cooled, it will return to sort of a semi-rigid rubbery state, at which point you can pop the base back out, and you should have an exact copy, or an indent, of the base that you had created and pushed in there. And make sure you've got some sides on it as well, because if we're using resin, you don't want it spilling out. Here are the base toppers that we've just created, and we'll just pour some resin in there. At this thickness, it takes about half an hour to dry. If you don't let it dry, it cracks like soft sand. Once it's dry though, it can be sanded, cut and painted like hard resin. It also chips and cracks like masonry very well, as I showed previously with the clippers. When taking it out of the mould, don't worry if it breaks, because you can do some creative things with it, which I'll show you an example of later. The bluestuff mould is also very good for using with greenstuff. Just put a layer of greenstuff in it and then push the base in to create a greenstuff topper. Trim the greenstuff to size after it's cured, and you're in exactly the same situation you are with using a resin top. It's a multifunctional mould. With the base that broke, you don't need to throw it away. The parts that you've got can be used to create a dynamic feel to your army. Having everyone on exactly the same base, though convenient, isn't exactly interesting. So snap some in half, use bits and pieces, combine it with shrubberies and sands or texture paints, and you've got yourself some interesting bases going on. And that's about it. If you've got any questions or requests, post them in the comments or in our Discord. All of the links are in the description. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe.